Hi everyone, welcome back to our Facebook Live, I beg your pardon, YouTube Live. My brain is not totally with it today. It's just me today. Last week or 2 weeks ago, it was both me and Magali, which was really nice. But today it is just me. However, we do have the excitement of talking about the body of the Saoirse sweater. So this is clue 2. If you are new and you haven't come across Saoirse before, then you can still jump in and join Saoirse. At this point, you'll just get both of the actual, you're going to get both of them together. Now, I do seem to have something funny happening here where I'm having an echo going on, which is not great. Give me 1 second there to see what's happening. My suspicion, I think I know what's happening. There we go. I had 2 streams open, which is what was happening. So I was getting an echo with the 2. I should be a little bit better now, hopefully. If I'm a little bit kind of tired and out of it today, a couple of weeks ago, I was probably talking to you when the last hurricane hit Florida and saying that my father-in-law lives alone in Florida. And he lives in Sarasota. So that's where the hurricane hit last night. So I'm fairly sure he's fine. He's in a new building. He did stay there. He was not in a flood zone, but he doesn't have a mobile phone, a cell phone. So we can't hear from him yet. So we're going to have to wait till there's enough debris cleared. So some friends of my husband's will be able to get over there. So I'm sure he's fine, but we're definitely in waiting mode to see what happens. And I know there's a lot of you around listening from Florida. I hope you're all safe. Maybe you're in the car using the car battery to charge up your phone watching me here. If you are here, I hope you got through okay and it wasn't too scary. I imagine that even if you're safe, the sound, the noise volume from that storm has to be pretty incredible. I do not envy you, but I'm glad you're out the other side, and I hope that the aftermath is not too hard. I know that many people up along different states in Georgia and the Carolinas are still suffering from the last one. So I'm thinking of you all, and I hope you are having a fast recovery. Hey, Michaela from Tennessee. I'm seeing you all in here. We've got Laura from Minnesota and Gloria from Colorado, Becky and Marjorie, Tia. Oh, lovely to see all of you. And we've got 2 things that are happening today. Not only are we going to go talk about the body of this, but if I stand back here, I'm wearing the Bearer sweater. So for the 2024 Celtic Knits Club, we had a whole series of patterns that were released over several months with exclusive jazz colors. If you were not part of the Celtic Knits Club, but if you saw a pattern that popped up that you're dying to jump in, now is the time you can get it. All of those patterns, workshops, yarn kits, and let me hold it up, and the jazz colors are all available. So I will talk about that later. Laura, you're saying, I hope you hear from my father-in-law. Yeah, I think we'll probably be okay. I'm hoping by this evening we'll know something, but it definitely does. It's making me absent-minded. I'm kind of finding my head wandering over here and there as you're definitely. I'm not very focused today. I'm a little bit like a butterfly scattered all over the place. So for the sweater for the body, I will start talking about that because I don't want to forget about it, because we've had a few questions come in and a few kind of things I'd love to detail and explain how things fit together and different things that you can do. What we're doing with the actual sweater one, you're going to take the sleeves off and you're going to cast on stitches across each side, join in the round and knit down. Now, when you take the stitches off and you cast on stitches, you can see here, you're going to add a new pattern that's all ripple stitch. So it is detailed in the pattern, but I think it's always useful to be able to see that. So bigger sizes will have more stitches. So for larger sizes, you're going to have a bigger panel running down here. Smaller sizes, less so. I had one question from, it was Saoirse. She was asking in the forums today that with the vest version, what happens at the underarms? Because this is the vest here. It's actually kind of crazy. They are the same length, believe it or not, but this one actually looks longer because of the fact that without the sleeves, it just feels like it sits longer. But with this one, because you're coming down here across each side, you've got, when you bind off the stitches for the armhole, you leave one stitch outside here. And the reason for that is you want to maintain that slip stitch all the way down the side here. And in order to do that, you're going to want one edge stitch along the side. So when you pick up stitches for the sleeve, the slip stitch can still remain in place. So that means when you come down here, you've got one stitch here and one stitch over here that are already there. So as you cast on here, there'll be 2 stitches left, but those 2 edge stitches, one on each side, are going to just be incorporated into that side. Here, let me turn it properly here. Ripple stitch pattern as you run down the middle of the side here. So that's, I suppose, if you're wondering why the stitch count is a little different where you cast on for the vest versus in the sweater, it means that you're going to have a little, yeah, it's the same. It will be the same eventually. You just have 2 less stitches to be able to cast on because of this. Now, the other difference is this sweater, you've got some waist shaping, which means that it decreases down to the waist. There's a little bit in the middle of the waist that's straight, and then you increase coming down to the hips. It is very gentle, though. There's only 4 rounds of decreases and 4 rounds of increases, which is not a lot. Sometimes you might have more. And that means that it comes in a little bit and it goes out, but it's not very dramatic. So it'll give a little bit of shaping, but it's not going to make you feel like it's getting too tight around the middle. So we did have, I know Laura was saying that she wasn't sure if she was going to do the waist shaping or whether she was going to do it where she took a little bit less. So she was wondering if maybe she had 2 decrease rounds and where she would put them in. The first thing I would say is I think 2 decrease rounds is very little. So that may end up being just a bit too small. Maybe dropping it down to 3 might make sense. And your other question was where you'd put it. So the first thing, when you try this on, you don't want to start doing any decreases until you've gone past the fullest point of the bust. So once you've gone past the fullest point of the bust, then you can do your first decrease. So if you've got 3 decreases, you could have 1 at the fullest point of the bust, 1 just about where your smallest part of your waist starts, so like around about your belly button or when you lean sideways, just to the top of that. And then you can put the middle one in the middle here. So you can measure that. You can try it on. You can see where you're going to start. You can see where the bottom one is. And you can either figure out rows, or you can just go, I'm going to go 3 inches and put 1 in. I'm going to do another 3 inches. And I know I've reached the point where I want my narrowest point of my waist. The middle section here, there's about 9 rounds where you just work in pattern, where there's no decreases. And that is equivalent to where the waist is. And then you're going to start increases. So when you're working in the round here, when you've taken the sleeves off, this is the right front or the left front over here, and this is the start of your round. So that means that you're going to work across the side panel here, like you'll work all the way across this ripple stitch and across this back one. And your first set of decreases is going to be over here and over here, because you want them on each side of that back panel, and the same on the front. It's going to be on this side and on this side, and you're going to work your way down like this. So your starter round is over here in the front. And when I will talk a little bit about the vest, and if you're swapping between one and another, it's going to visually be in the same place, but your starter round in the vest is a little different by virtue of the way the whole thing has been cast on. So I'll kind of talk a little bit more about that. In terms of length, if you want to add extra length, just put it where you need it. I'd say keep trying it on. If your waist is lower, add the extra length up further. If your hips or if you just want a little bit longer in your hips, then you can space the decreases or the increases down a little bit further down here. So I would suggest putting that extra length wherever you need it for your body style. And you can take out the waist decreases and just do it straight down. You can do as Laura's planning on having just a little bit less decreases and then a little bit less increases as you go down. And it was, I think Sandra was asking a question she was kind of thinking about doing A-line and she wasn't 100% sure about it. She's saying she liked a little bit more room down there, and A-line is actually really nice for that. But to avoid it looking too oversized, I would suggest keeping the bust size a little smaller if you're doing A-line, have a tiny bit more fitted, And then you can actually go very, very slowly down. I wouldn't go dramatically with it. It'd be every few inches. You don't need a huge amount of increases, just the tiniest bit going down to kind of to move out slowly. And you don't need any extra directions for it either, because the increases you have for the hips, it'll tell you where to put those increases in. So you can use the very same increase round if you want to do A-line. I wouldn't go too dramatic with it though, because you could end up with a little bit too much room at the bottom here. But like A-line works great, but yeah, just keep a tiny bit more fitted at the bust is probably a good idea. If you don't want to have any decreases, then you could actually take a look at what I do for the vest. So for the vest, I went straight down. And because garter stitch has a tendency of stretching out, and particularly cumulus, I both used a smaller needle size for the bottom, but I also did quite a few decreases before the garter stitch in the bottom. So what that meant is it gave it a little bit more structure. It held it in a little bit. And if you were doing straight down with this, I would actually do the same thing. If you're going straight down, do one round of decreases around here before you start the garter stitch in the bottom, because that way you can actually, it'll hold its shape a little bit better, stretch out a small bit less. You've also got a couple of variations in terms of edging. So the edge of this has got remember, there's the I-cord edging. And the edge of this is one of my favorites. It is the Icelandic bind off. That's a new one to me over a couple of years ago. And I'm finding myself using it a lot, where I would also use the I-cord bind off, but the I-cord bind off can be a little thicker. So if you want the general idea or feel of an I-cord bind off, but not quite the bulk, then the Icelandic bind off is probably a good one for you. So if you know what you're going to do, or you've got any other questions in relation to shaping with this, just throw them up there. I'm happy to answer them. Or if you've got a preference for one bind off method over the other one, I'd love to know, because it's I find it very interesting watching people's thought processes as they go through and they're trying to figure out how they're going to modify a pattern to suit their own body shape, or the yarn you're using, or your knitting style, if one works better for you than the other. It's really it's the most interesting part about the knit along for me, is seeing all of those little modifications and tweaks that people make along the way as they're going. We will come back for the clue 3, obviously, is going to be our sleeves, and it'll be for all the edging and the necks and the armholes and things like that. Now, there was a couple of questions came in as well in relation to the top section and figuring out the yoke depth. So when you're trying to figure out your yoke depth on the schematic, you've got to remember that's actually the block depth. And most people are discovering this ripple stitch pattern, it pulls up very, very tightly vertically. So you need to have a steam blocker to open it up, so it's going to be a lot more open, and you get a much more true sense of vertically what it looks like. With this, I would almost actually hang it while you're steaming it, because it does grow so much lengthwise, and that's going to give you a better idea of how much growth you're going to get. The schematic is going to give you the highest point, so at the back of the neck down to where you divide for the underarm. So for that, the front here obviously is not going to give you the depth you want. You're going to look at the middle of here to where your needles are, is when you're trying to look at the yoke depth, is what you'll be looking at there. And you can try it on as well, that it doesn't have to reach, it shouldn't be snug in here, but it doesn't have to reach all the way together here, because of course there'll be a bind off here. So if it'll come down comfortably to here, ideally with a little bit of room, but not too much. And then, the stitches will join it up underneath. So try it on every stitch along the way. We usually will suggest using barber cord or having a second needle so you can open it up and you can try it on. Really makes a big difference. I've got some questions over here. Oh, hi, Susan. Lovely to see people from Australia popping in. If a person wanted I-cord bind off without the bulk, what about splitting the plies of the yarn and using a single instead of the 2-ply? I wouldn't be inclined to do that, because I think it would get too tight. You can, however, make it a smaller I-cord, because the one I've got on this is a 3-stitch I-cord, but you can also use a 2-stitch I-cord. So that's probably actually going to give you slightly less bulky bind off, but still the effect of the I-cord. So with an I-cord, if it was too tight or too small, the plies, I would worry that it would pull in vertically too much, and you could end up getting too tight a hem. So, but 2 stitches I think should definitely do it for you. Audrey, would the weight of the I-cord bind up help the hem from rolling when making the vest in cumulus mohair? I'd found that because you've got there's 2 things that will help prevent roll anyway. Like, I actually didn't have any roll with this. Dropping down to the smaller needle size, having garter stitch before it means that you're really not going to get any roll with it, because you're not doing the bind off with the ripple stitch, you're doing it on the garter stitch, which hangs pretty straight anyway. I-cord does help, but like the Icelandic bind off does as well. But I don't think you shouldn't find that it's rolling once you've got the garter stitch, and in particular the garter stitch in the smaller needle size actually also helps prevent it from rolling. Liz, you're using cumulus for the sweater and doing A-line. Should you need to do the decrease row before the edging? Oh, good question. In the cumulus, I think I would, because I think it'll actually help maintain a little, like maybe you don't do as many decreases, but a little bit of decreases as well as the smaller needle size, I do feel will help keep that a little bit more stable. Because when I did the decreases on this, on the cumulus, I had actually expected it to be a little bit more gathered in a different shape. And I actually discovered that it needed that just to prevent it stretching out and holding the shape in the bottom. So yeah, somewhere in between, I think you could maybe even half the amount of decreases. So I don't know offhand what the ratio is, but like say it's every 6 stitches, maybe do it every 12 stitches or something like that. Denise, you have no hips. Should you do any extra decreases? I would leave that up to you, as that like you wouldn't have to, because it doesn't have to come tightly in. If you're worried about it looking too wide and flaring out, then you could, but it probably isn't necessary, because if you're going straight down and you're like, I'm assuming Denise, that you're doing the one with no shaping straight down. And if that's the case, then just, do the standard decreases as you're going. If you're doing where it comes in and it goes out here, then perhaps you could do less decreases coming down to the end if you don't want it to come quite as wide and you want your hips narrower than the bust. So either of those are probably going to be pretty good options, I think. You're doing the vest, so I assume that you're just going straight down with it. The decreases that are there, I think, should just be fine. I don't think you need to add to those if you're doing the straight down version with no waist shaping. Now, obviously, you can mix and match the two. It just so that I showed both of them. We were showing the waist shaping with this and straight down with this, but you can alternate. So the only thing to keep an eye on is when you are, I'm not sure if I got this is back to front here. So the start around, as I was saying, is over on the left front if you're doing the sweater. If you're doing the vest, it's actually going to be over here. So because you join across and then you knit those, you cast on the stitches and then you knit that extra one from the edge, you're doing the start of round here. So that actually means that you're going to first of all work this garter, and then instead of doing ripple stitch with nothing happening, you'll go straight into the point where you want to make decreases. It shouldn't cause a problem once you just look at the fact that if you're doing the decreases on each side of the front and each side of the back, then you're going to be in the right place for it. Or else alternatively, you can move your start around to over on the front here as well if you wanted to. But I don't think it should be necessary. It'll just be that you're looking at a different ripple stitch panel for when you're doing your decreases is the main thing to remember. But that's why I've kind of, in the actual pattern notes and in the tips, I've detailed that and kind of talked a little bit about the fact that the start around on the sweater and on the vest is in a different place, which will mean that where you're talking about or where you're looking at the actual decreases for the waist, if you were doing it for the vest, will look a little bit different because it's the panel is a little different. When you're knitting it, I think it'll actually make sense. It's harder to describe on paper than it is to knit, and you go, oh, I see what you're talking about now. Yes, decreases on the front and on the back, and you're in the right place. If there are any other questions that you do have about this, then pop them up here. If you're knitting on it and you have questions after the fact, put them in the comments, or just jump into KnitHub and join everybody else in there. It's actually fantastic to watch all of the finished pieces coming up. There's some, like you're seeing people try on the yoke and all the different colors, the different yarns, the different permutations they're just fantastic. So keep them coming. I think that for anybody who's kind of working a little bit slower or who's a bit unsure on what they're doing, it's really helpful to see the progress that people are making and to have all of the other questions answered along the way. Judy, my sweater is lovely. Thank you. And actually perfect timing. It was like I planted you there, because it's now time to talk about JAS and all of the new releases of the Celtic Knits Club. So as I said, our Celtic Knits Club 24 has drawn to a close. Anybody who was a member of it has gotten all of the patterns and all of the and has got all of the yarn already for the club, but it's now released to everybody else who was not in the club. So this was the most recent pattern. The Bearer sweater, which I will stand up a bit here and stand back so you can see it. Here's the Bearer sweater, and it's done in JAS. It's done in the round from the bottom up. It's got ribbing with cables across the front and across the back. And then the sleeves are picked up and they're set in sleeves from the top down. Because it's ribbing, it's actually it's got a nice range of sizes, and you can also even block it so that the ribbing is a little bit more relaxed if you want more fit, or a little bit snugger if you want a tighter fit. So it means that one size can actually accommodate a few different size ranges for it. This particular one here, one of our new colors, it was in Sea Spray. So this is the actual color on the skein. And I'm going to show you a few of the others. I'm kind of in love. This was one of the first colors that came out, and it's the lime. And I think this is a fantastic color. Really, really like this. The other one that came out at the same time was, I could be wrong on this, was Heath. And I think, can you imagine the Heath color? It's just such a lovely, lovely, it's deep, deep red. I like on this, it looks a little browner, but it is definitely a dark red color. But I think the Bearer sweater would be great in that. Or if you want something a bit more moody, we have this one here, which is our night. I'm going to get this wrong now. There's no name on it. But this is a gorgeous navy color. We have the fog color here, where I have more samples that I'm going to pull in here, and we can see the fog in action there. I'm sure somebody's going to jump in and actually tell you the color here. Nightfall. Yes, I knew there was night involved, but thank you. Liz has come to my rescue. Nightfall here is the name of this one. My brain is not in the game today. And I think this is also a sweater that's calling my name, Jade. Isn't that, it's just such a fantastic color. And the little flecks of the lighter lime and pinks and purples going through it are just gorgeous. So now I'm going to show you a few of the other pieces. This here is the Fairy Times wrap that was designed by Laura, and this one is in the fog color. So you can wrap it scrunched up just like a scarf, or you can actually have it as a bigger wrap over your shoulders, being a little bit more elegant. But I tend to be a scarf person, but because the JAS is lovely and soft, it's actually a nice one to have next to your neck. If you haven't knit in JAS before, it is merino with a touch of mohair. I believe it is 14% mohair. I'll double check there so I'm not a liar. Yes, 14% mohair. But this wrap here, you can see there's a big giant cable running up in the middle. I should probably take it off my neck so I don't strangle myself. You've got a big giant cable going up in the middle, and then we've got little ones out on each side, and then flanked in each end with the blackberry stitch, which I think is just a lovely, lovely combo of colors. And the JAS is lovely and light. When you hold it, it doesn't feel heavy and dense. It's got a real airiness to it because of the fact that it's woolen spun. So really pleasant to knit with and to wear. And then the very first set that is out is the shirkin set. So this is my the color that I love, the jade color. And the shirkin one, it's got, because the theme was originally islands for this club. And so I was trying to convey with this hat the two sides of an island. The idea that you have the big staghorn up on one side, which is for the mountains. And then on the other side, we have the wave. So we've got this wave pattern with little bobbles in there. And the mitts that go with this are in my other favorite color, the lime. And you've got this one just took that one stitch pattern running up the front with the back of it being plain. And the final one from the sets is the Celtic cowl. And you can see the nightfall color that's knit up in this one here. So all of these can be, you'll find them. If you want all of them and to just get hold of them, you can still get the digital club, which will give you all the patterns and all of the workshops for it. You can buy the patterns and workshops individually. And of course, you can buy the yarn separately or in a yarn kit. So if you're not sure and you just want to try some of them out, you can get a collection of just the individual colors. They're just on the main JAS page on the website, where you'll be able to see all of the ones from last year and all of these ones from this year. Now, I know there was a question popped up over here. Moke was asking, can the cowl neck be done in the blasta, or I've nearly lost it, or will it be too stiff? I was actually suggesting for that going up a needle size. So for the cowls in this, I went up a needle size, and I would suggest the same thing. If you're worried it's a little stiff, you could actually even go up 2 needle sizes. And one other thing that you could do is before you started, you could even do an increase round if you wanted. It doesn't have to be dramatic, but just a little bit so that it's going to give you drape. So I don't think it would be too stiff if you make sure you increase that needle size even up to the size of the body. It should feel the same as for the side. If you feel that the side garter is still going to be too stiff, then go up one more size and think about the possibility of doing some increases. And once you've got that, I think it's going to be fine. Becky, you're saying, my family, I hope they fare well. Yes, I hope they fare well too. I think they'll be fine. They were he was in a very, very new building, so he's and in a non-flood zone. So I think he'll be fine. It's just really scary. It doesn't sound like a fun thing to live through. Judy, the jade is amazing, and Laura's in love with the heath. I know there's something for everyone there. I feel like it's a lovely little colorful bundle when you see them all together like this. Judy, you just got some JAS. You may have to order a lot more. It's lovely to knit with, isn't it? It's because of the fact that it is merino but woolen spun, it's very light. The mohair adds a little bit of a halo, but it's not excessive, and it does add to the warmth of it for sure. Moke, when does the Celtic Knit Club 25 start? We're going to in a few weeks' time. The Celtic, well, I've got my dates wrong. It'll be, I think that it's in November, but it will be released. Make sure you are on the newsletter because you'll be the first person to know when it goes in pre-sale. So it goes in pre-sale in November. It's open for a few weeks, and then we begin delivering from March onwards. So keep an eye out for next month, but do make sure that you're on that newsletter so you don't miss it. Audrey, you're going to be making the bearer in jade later this year. Oh, that would be gorgeous. Can't you just, that will be really, really nice. Yes, looking forward to seeing that. Yep, we've popped up the full collection link there. So if anybody needs the collection, you can find the link there. And if you've got any more questions, just pop them up here. If I don't see them until afterwards, I will, of course, jump in. If you're watching this after the fact and you're trying to see comments and you're on mobile, when you're in the comments section, you have to swipe sideways because the live comments are on the side. It took me a long time to figure that out because it is not noted. You just have to know that you sweep sideways. If you're watching on a computer, it's no problem because they just keep running next to the side of my screen here, but it's on mobile. It's a little bit more hidden. So they're still there. They don't disappear. Just very, very well hidden. But thank you all for joining me today. I'm going to be away teaching. I'm going to be teaching next week. So anybody who's around in Ireland, I may be with you. I've got, there's Rachel is knitting eyes on Monday. This weekend, I'm going to be in Galway with Clover 44. And then from Tuesday, I'm got with Knit and Nature Retreat. So it's an intensive few days of teaching. And of course, next Thursday, the Boston Knitting Guild, I'm going to be with for both a talk and a class. So I will not be talking to you next Thursday, but the following week I'll have fully recovered, and I'll be back, and we'll be ready to talk about clue 3. Moke, just a quick thank you for all the quick video tips every day. I'm glad you enjoy them. I'm delighted that they help. Deb, you now want that jade green. I know it's dangerous watching the lives. There's a lot of very pretty colors come popping up. So it's one of those sorry, not sorry situations. But I think Laura inside, this is the one that she's lusting after a sweater in, which I think would equally be lovely. All right. I'm going to say goodbye, and I will see you all in a couple of weeks. Stay safe and have a good week, and enjoy knitting clue 2.